Zoom recording. Okay, and we'll get started. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you all for joining us. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think we'll need the full hour for this meeting, this information session, but the LISC team just wanted to offer some time to connect with you all, answer any questions that you might have regarding the AmeriCorps process, and then just talk you through the impetus for why we do AmeriCorps with our partners, and then of course providing the guidance because as AmeriCorps is a federally funded program, as I'm sure you all know, with government funds and government programs comes these government regulations as well, and a lot of additional administrative tasks going ahead. So we just wanted to be able to spend some time to connect with you all. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, this will be recorded, so we'll be able to send it out to you all to review if you have any follow-up questions as well. So I'll just introduce myself, Emilio Gonzalez. I'm a community development officer with the LISC New York team, and I've been supporting / running the AmeriCorps program for a little under 2 years now. So I was actually surprised myself with how much I know about what you can and can't do with AmeriCorps. So I'm here to answer any questions, and I'll pass it to my colleague Taylor to round out the introductions on the New York side, on the LISC side.
Thanks, Emilio. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Crawford, also a community development officer on the LISC New York team. Been with the team for a little over a year and a half. Have not worked much with AmeriCorps, but I think I'll be more involved next year. So excited to meet you all, learn a bit more, but I'll pass it off to, I see Ingrid on my right. So I'll pass it over to you.
To me, hi, I'm Ingrid Gomez Faria. I am Director of Real Estate Development for Cloth. And I think I have had some experience with the AmeriCorps Vista persons. We had one maybe years ago. I don't know, I can't recall where they came from, but I'm familiar with the work that they do and stuff like that. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Ingrid. And I can pass it over to Robert to continue the introductions.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody. My name is Robert McCool, and I'm the Director of Home Ownership Programs at Neighbors Helping Neighbors. We actually had a LISC AmeriCorps member in 2022 who was fantastic, and we're going to be applying to hopefully extend her service again in 2023. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Robert. And then last and certainly not least, Lynn, if you don't mind, and you can get off mute and just introduce yourself, the organization, and then if you have any familiarity with the AmeriCorps program. Lynn, I see you came off mute, but if you're speaking, we can't hear you. And if you can't, that's fine. You can just put your introduction in the chat as well if that works better for you. Okie dokie, still not getting audio, so it might be a Zoom thing, it might be a technical difficulty with the mic or something. So if you can get it fixed, we can come back to you, and if not, we'll just I'll just share my screen and put on the presentation. Let's see. Okay. All right, so hopefully you all can see my screen. Okay. All right, so we'll just get started. Actually, before we go to that slide, I think I just want to share the impetus for why the LISC New York office is a strong proponent of the AmeriCorps program. As you all know, LISC tries to empower the communities across the city that house low to moderate income individuals, so that these neighborhoods that have historically been underinvested or neglected can be neighborhoods where individuals can not just survive, but grow and thrive. And we know the organizations you all represent and the organizations you work for are integral partners in our mission, and also our mission statewide, citywide, but also are integral in supporting the communities that you all operate in. Like I know, for example, Fifth Avenue Committee, having been an intern with them back in 2017, how integral Fifth Avenue Committee and Neighbors Helping Neighbors are to Gowanus and surrounding neighborhoods as well. And same thing with Cloth, who I have not worked with as closely, but just attending your gala recently and talking to folks, attendees, and just neighborhood residents that I know in Harlem as well sing Cloth's praises. So our goal for our AmeriCorps program is to it's double pronged actually. It's to help build the capacity of your organizations by providing you with an AmeriCorps member that is eager to learn about the work that you do, eager to impact the communities you serve, but also eager to soak up all this in industry knowledge that you all can provide based on your long years of experience working at your respective organizations or this respective field, right? But it's also to provide professional development to our AmeriCorps members. Last year was the first year we started our partnership, our AmeriCorps partnership with CUNY, the City of New York School Service, specifically the School of Labor and Urban Studies, SLU. And our vision was that because we know AmeriCorps members are typically tend to, not always, but are typically younger, right? And the tuition assistance in a city like New York isn't always that impactful. The tuition assistance and the education award doesn't go that far in New York specifically. We wanted to offer it as a resource to collegiate age individuals so that they can supplement their academic studies, but also get a certificate from the school that can help that can be highlighted on their resume so that they have this academic experience and they're learning about community development in theory in the classroom, but are also putting it into practice with your organizations in the field, doing whatever the work it is that you all provide. So here you can see specifically the impact that the AmeriCorps program has had throughout the previous 26 years of the program. This slide is actually a little outdated since this previous year was year 27 and this upcoming year will be year 28 of the LISC AmeriCorps program, but you can see the impact that AmeriCorps members have had in the LISC network that is measurable, right, in terms of these metrics, but there's also a plethora of impact or a plethora of information that is unmeasurable that you might not be able to see in terms of careers started, right? Many of these AmeriCorps members, like Robert shared earlier, do a stellar job at their placement sites and oftentimes or sometimes are offered a full-time position with their partners. And that's how this career and community development starts, because they started their service program, learned that this field was something that exists, learned that this field was something that they were passionate about, and decided, hey, I want to do this for the rest of my life or for my career, or at least the next couple of years. And I think specifically something that is of note for you all, since both Ingrid and Robert, you do housing-based work with your organizations, are these metrics on affordable homes and units preserved, clients counseled, and rental assistance provided, that direct technical assistance that many AmeriCorps members do in partnership with your organizational strategies and missions, and then clients that were assisted to purchase homes, to avoid foreclosure, or who were able to find apartments or just become housing stable. I think there are a variety of different program, job descriptions, work plans that you can provide your members that will support the work that you do at your organizations. But we have found that historically, a lot of our partners have done housing-based work or organizing-based work, tenant advocacy work, coalition building. But of course, this is not the end-all be-all. Sometimes it falls under those buckets, but it can fall under plenty of other buckets as well, as you can see with employment assistance and community engagement on these metrics as well. Something that I think is important to highlight and consider during your application process is that an AmeriCorps member is not an employee, they're a service member. They're doing, it's similar to like the Peace Corps, right? Where a lot of us have heard of growing up, or at least I heard of growing up, where you're doing service missions across the world. It's a similar vein, but nationally based, locally based. So one thing to keep in mind while completing your application is that your AmeriCorps member cannot be replacing a full-time employer, cannot be taking the opportunities, the duties of what would be a full-time staff member. It's an opportunity for that AmeriCorps member to, one, like I mentioned earlier, add more capacity to you all and help you provide your services and how you choose, but also for them to grow into the role, start to get that first taste of working in a professional setting, but specifically in community development, economic development, affordable housing, like many of you all operate in. Go to the next slide here. So this is a little bit of information as to what the operating structure will be like. The AmeriCorps members will have touch points with all of us here at the LISC New York staff, but also with the LISC AmeriCorps staff. So Stacy, Sarah, Stephanie, and Linda are wizards at what they do and handling all the compliance and the admin services and all the background in terms of like paychecks and quarterly reports and appraisals, Robert, which I'm sure you're very familiar with by this point, right? So when there's something relating to the monthly leadership sessions, when it comes to the career development retreat that LISC does once a year, these kind of holistic strategy, the holistic programmatic service that the LISC AmeriCorps team provides, Sarah and Stacy will likely be your points of contacts, and Stephanie and Linda will be your points of contact in terms of like payment and assistance and things like that. But in terms of the direct day-to-day support with the AmeriCorps member, it will likely be you all as their supervisors or their mentors, and then us on the LISC team handling monthly leadership development sessions, training sessions, just making sure that they are comfortable with the work plan, everything is going smoothly with their supervisor and the work that they're doing, and that there are no complications going on. And I'll dive in a little bit more into what that program structure looks like in a bit. So in terms of timeline and the program elements, it's a little different this year than it was last year. The main difference are that now it's an 11-month fellowship or 11-month membership versus in previous years it had been 10 months. And with that addition, there's also an increase to the stipend that the AmeriCorps members get paid from LISC. It used to be $20,000. Now it's $21,000 with the extra month. And that the impetus for that was basically that we noticed a lot of that if you had to do the 1,700-hour service members that were 10-month members, they had to essentially average 42.5, if not 43 hours a week to meet that 1,700-hour deadline in those 10 months. And by extending the fellowship one more month, it allows AmeriCorps members to have a little bit more flexibility and leeway, and basically, for lack of a better word, more time and less stress in completing those hours. Because what we notice is that if AmeriCorps members don't front load, or historically, if AmeriCorps members did not front load their hours, it became very quick for them to fall behind by just working 40-hour work weeks, and those 40-hour work weeks over time add up, and you're missing that extra 2.5, 3 hours by the time you're ready to do your exit survey. You've noticed that you have all these hours that have fallen behind. So this now rounds closer towards 37 hours, 38 hours, I believe it is actually 38.5 hours per week, which is I think a little bit more manageable. And then since, like I mentioned earlier, we have this partnership with CUNY with the program, and many of the AmeriCorps members also are engaged in coursework with their university. It also gives them a little bit more wiggle room and flexibility. In terms of match costs from your organization, partners are required to match what LISC is paying in order to ensure that, one, the AmeriCorps members get their stipend and are able to get, their insurance benefits and their education award, but also so that they can attend many of LISC's monthly, bi-monthly training offerings, and then attend leadership conference mid-year down the road. And it's basically to support the cost of the members' needs of living, for lack of a better word. And if any questions come up throughout the presentation, feel free to either raise your hand or type it in the chat, or just like come off mute and ask me. You don't have to wait to the end, specifically since we're such a much more of an intimate group today.
Hey, Amelia, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I'm still stuck on the first slide screen.
Okay, are you guys all still seeing the first slide?
I am too.
Okay, thanks for that heads up. Let's do this.
I can try to share it for you too if you want.
I'm just gonna do this instead. Appreciate the heads up. Is this better for folks?
Yes, now we're seeing
Got
it,
it.
yeah.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna go back to the previous slide so you can get a better sense of what I was talking through. Just these are some of the metrics I was referring to earlier that you all might not have been able to see. So I just want to leave that on the screen for you all to digest it a little bit, since I think I was just talking about it, right? But it also is a lot more impactful to see these numbers and the metrics and the impact itself, because we talk about the impetus to build the capacity, or I don't know if I don't know if I really like the word, to just support our partners, right? Just with more human capital and human labor, but also to invest in human capital and human labor in the communities that we serve. So it's one thing to talk, but actually to see the impact and the metrics of jobs provided, counseling provided, services provided, homes that AmeriCorps members were able to connect community residents with, I think is a lot more impactful, and just seeing not just theoretically what an AmeriCorps member might do, but seeing specifically what they have done over the past 26, 27 years in the variety of communities that LISC operates in. I'll just move.
So quick question on the
Sure.
38 and a half hours.
Yeah.
Does that have to be at the office, or is it spread around all the activities that they have to do for the week?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, I think it's spread throughout all the activities. So I think specifically in light of the health challenges of the pandemic and this hybrid work space, we've had some partners have their members come in 3 days a week and then be virtual 2 days a week, or operate in the community doing door knocking 1 day a week, and then in the office the other day. So it's really up to you all. Is it really up to your organization and the needs of the organization? If you're doing more like outreach based work, or forward facing work, where you feel like it would benefit you to have a member really be out in the field and connect with individual residents and tenants and things like that, then you can have your work plan geared on that. But if you feel like you need specific more support internally in terms of just like organizing databases, or just like compiling spreadsheets of which housing residents to reach out to, or which neighborhoods in the community to connect with to provide X, Y, and Z resource, you can gear it towards that, or it can be a combination of the two. I think, Robert, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, would you mind sharing a little bit about your working dynamic with Amine and what that work plan looked like?
Sure. So in the past year, it really focused on a lot of outreach for 2 new programs that we had. We have a solar program for homeowners, and then we were connecting landlords, helping landlords make their apartments available for housing voucher holders. So our AmeriCorps member she helped us develop the outreach plans and adapt them as we went. And then she did a lot of the hands-on work of, cold calling, door knocking, direct mailing, networking with partners, setting up webinars, that sort of thing.
Thanks, Robert. And I think it's kind of, what's the word? Inspiring. I don't know if that's the right word. Heartwarming for me to see, because I know when Amine first started, she shared with me that she was a little nervous about these cold calls, these door knocking, just like how to build that trust and how to connect with individuals. But by not, because she had been doing it for months, she owned the work plan. Like you mentioned, Robert, she grew into the role and became more comfortable. And I think that's something you might notice with some of the AmeriCorps members. They might come in and be a little nervous, a little hesitant, like they might not know the strengths and weaknesses, but as they get more comfortable with your organization, with you as a supervisor, with the work you do, the community you serve, they kind of just, the work becomes them, for lack of a better word, right? And I think it's always inspiring to see that growth, that internal growth is just in 1 year's time, and then also the potential for growth that might come afterwards. Okay. Also, one thing I want to clarify specifically on this slide is that full-time members, for the 1,700-hour members, are entitled to benefits from LISC, including health insurance and childcare benefits and things like that. But those who are part-time members, the 900-hour positions, are not. And also, the half-hour members kind of get basically both of these stipends are halved for half-hour members. I think because of our specific cohort-based program partnership with CUNY, we have had more full-time hour members than half-time hour members, and typically have had the 900-hour members as like summer members or like summer interns, basically to build the capacity or to offer more support to our partners during summer months when they have, open streets or SYA student youth, summer youth advisory programs, things like that. But it's really up to you all and how you decide what you want to apply for and what you think the needs are for your organization. So I think this gives a little bit more oversight or insight specifically into the different dynamics between all the players here, between the LISC national team, the LISC local team that Taylor and myself are a part of, and then the roles that you all will be placing at your organizations. So as you can see here, our colleagues Sarah, Stacy, Linda, and Stephanie provide many of that admin support and providing the tools and resources for our AmeriCorps members to thrive. They host bi-weekly training sessions, all are recorded, they're all saved in our box folder for AmeriCorps members to reference. If they're, for some reason, we're not able to attend, they can go back and read through or review these training, these webinars, these resources, and those sometimes can also be included in hours. So that's one of the things we have used in the past when AmeriCorps members have, had personal life events or family concerns or have had to take a small leave of absence. They've been able to make up some of those hours just watching these trainings that they missed, doing professional development, things of that nature. Of course, our National LISC AmeriCorps team also handles the time cards, the payments, reporting, billing, connecting with you all to make sure that you have submitted your partner match to LISC, things of that nature. What the role that Taylor and myself and Christina and basically our partner Kate from our Western New York office, so basically your local office will play is just like I mentioned earlier, reviewing your application, selecting the partners, reviewing potential members, building that relationship between not only the member and their work plan, but also you all as a supervisor, making sure things are copacetic on both sides and kind of playing the role of the intermediary between both and just offering resources and support for the member, but also making sure that, we're on the same page with you all in case for some reason the member is not performing to your standard, or, some interventions need to happen where you're not getting God forbid, you're not getting in contact with your member. We can provide that extra touch point to connect with them and kind of like mediate any potential issues, and assist members with time cards, any AmeriCorps Learn stuff, and also the exit process and kind of like the appraisal process that we can help support you all with, and also the member with. And you all as partner sites, the placement sites, you will have the most direct touch point with the members because you will be seeing them whether virtually or in person regularly every day of the week, if that's the work plan you decide, or if you want them to come in occasionally on weekends for some community events. You will be providing that direct hands-on support, that training, getting them on board to, the CLOT systems, the NHN systems, getting a better understanding of what are the expectations that your organization abides by, and what are the expectations for the members as well, and what you expect to see from them during the 11-month period. You of course communicate any issues that you might have with myself or with Taylor or with our partners on the national teams. I think one specific example, one of our partners, Riseboro, had an AmeriCorps member this year. And earlier on, similar with Amina, he was dealing with, some personal issues with classes. And then because of that, he wasn't, arriving on time. And his supervisor was like, hey, this is not what we expected. This is not the standard we have here at our organization. If X, Y, and Z doesn't change, we might have to rethink this partnership. Can you reach out to him and let us know, and myself and my former colleague, Leah, had a conversation with him. We had a conversation with him and his supervisor, just, kind of level setting, making sure we all were on the same page on the standards, communicating communicating so that there's nothing lost in translation via a text or an email. We have it all in writing as well. And after that meeting, his performance flipped completely. And recently, I think a month ago, he got a full-time offer from the organization to work there. So it's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about the growth plan and the trajectory. Just because things might not be completely copacetic at first doesn't necessarily mean that it won't lead to that place. But I also don't want to leave the impression that all AmeriCorps members have a rough start, because I think Robert, you might be able to attest to this. Amine came in and was pretty sharp. She was just a little nervous, a little shy, but she came in and she knew her what was expected of her. She knew the material. She was just like one of our go-getters from the start, right? I think it's just like I just always appreciate seeing the growth from when they start at the placement site, when they start with you, when they start with us, and then what it looks like towards the end of their service term. So this is a little bit more detail into what will be expected of you all as supervisors, or whoever it is on your team that will be supervising the AmeriCorps member, because there are touch points between the LISC New York team and the LISC national team. Members will be expected to attend monthly cohort meetings with the LISC New York team, whether that's in person or virtually, and then a monthly cohort meeting with the national team, which likely will be virtual because we have AmeriCorps members placed at partner organizations throughout the country, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the AmeriCorps Leadership Conference, the past couple of years has happened virtually, but this upcoming year, the plan is for it to be in person. I just had a conversation with our colleague, Sarah, on the AmeriCorps national team, and she shared that they're still finalizing the contract. So they're expecting it to be mid-May, but it might be late June, depending on the negotiation process that they have. But both virtually and in person, the National Leadership Conference is a great opportunity for AmeriCorps members to connect with their peers and like-minded individuals who might be doing exactly the same work, but in a different market, might be doing the same work in Peoria or Duluth or LA or Chicago or one of the rural locations, anywhere there's a LISC office, they might be doing the same work. So it's an opportunity to exchange ideas and talk about, best practices. How do you solve this in this big city? Because I work in a big city. Or how do you solve this in this small community? How do you work with this Latino population? Because I do the same here. But it's also a great opportunity for those members to really build their Rolodex, or I guess their LinkedIn, their network, right, of individuals across the country, and kind of provide that professional development opportunity for them as well, because they have these other touch points, these other individuals that they can leverage as a resource. So it's not just the LISC New York team, it's not just their supervisor or the staff at your placement site, it's not just the AmeriCorps national team, but they also have that same that horizontal learning opportunity, that peer-to-peer learning, which we think provides value and opportunity for them as well. Of course, supervisors are expected to keep track of their members' reports and timesheets on the LISC New York team. We will review them as well to make sure that weekly or monthly that they're meeting their guidelines and expectations. And if we're noticing things are falling off, we'll reach out to you and say, hey, these haven't been approved for X amount of months. Like, what's going on here? Have they not been doing it? Or is it just like there's been a lot of moving parts to your organization? And of course, if it's busy seasons, that's fine, but just like having that line of communication is always helpful. Like I mentioned earlier, members are expected, or members have appraisals during the halfway point and towards the end of their service to make sure that you're meeting their expectations of the supervisors, are abiding by the work plan, and if any interventions need to happen that we know ahead of time, that is typically reviewed by the LISC team as well. And then I think something we try to get ahead of is that if there's, like I mentioned earlier, if there's any challenges, if there's any disruptions, if there's any if you all notice that the members' skills might not be perfectly aligned with your work plan, and it might be aligned with something else that you all are doing at your organization, you want to change the work plan, just let us know ahead of time, because like I mentioned, because this is a federal program, it's federally regulated, and if things change, and like if, for example, Emilio is an AmeriCorps member with the Fifth Avenue Committee, and he was expected to do tenant outreach, but now we know he's more data heavy, and now he's updating spreadsheets and databases, but his metrics on America Learns are how many tenants he engaged with, but he's not engaging with tenants anymore. That's something we need to know so we can update the metrics on our side, and your organization isn't penalized or the member isn't penalized for doing something else. Does that make sense? Okay, and lastly, something that is sorry, was there a question coming up, or are we all set? I thought I heard someone.
So here is what I was thinking.
Okay.
In terms of the responsibilities. For instance, we have several grants that we have to keep track of, touching base, how many people we have impacted, how many meetings we have held, holding those meetings, gathering all the documentation, because of course we have to be paid based on things. So is that something, plus you also mentioned that other groups have used the person to do SYEP, and we have open streets. So we have all of that. So is that something?
All of that falls under the falls under what you can do. It's just which combination of it, what metrics, what goals you want them to reach, what specific, like, do you want it to be centered around these community meetings and these organizings with also occasional support with like data stuff, or do you want it to be data centric with occasional reports for that? I think just like being intentional from the jump always makes it easier for one, the LISC side to approve your application, but also easier for the AmeriCorps member to know what is expected of them, and also you guys to know what type of skills you're looking for. If you're looking for more of a people person, like someone who's social and can break down that distrust, or if you're looking for someone that's more analytical, or a combination of the two, all of it helps with recruitment, but also it helps just like streamline the process for you all. I think one example, one of our partners, the Bridge Street Development Corporation, their AmeriCorps member this summer was integral in their open streets. They have these TAMA Sundays with the Tompkins Avenue Merchants Association, and their AmeriCorps member was there every Sunday supporting the merchant organizing and the community events and like the food and tabling that the organization did, right? But because they were there every Sunday for these hours, there were occasional days throughout the week where they didn't work, where they had time off because they were making up for those hours on the weekend, and it all fit under one, supporting the organization's mission, but also providing opportunities for that member to engage with the community and build their personal brand, and also like develop themselves as well as a young professional. Does that make sense?
Yes, because like of course, as you know, with the SYEP and the open streets, it's basically in the summer. So, we could maybe concentrate on the grant stuff earlier in the year, but come summertime, they would assist with those programs.
Exactly. That's something you could do. I think one thing we try to hammer in is that work plans should not be majority like admin based. You're not just like sitting at a front desk or just doing a spreadsheet, like of course you can do part of that can be part of the work plan, but we want to be able to ensure that they have this holistic this opportunity to have a holistically engaged experience with community development. So that's some combination of actual like meeting folks or doing door knocking and also doing the data, like both sides of it, right? Like get a full taste for what the further community development can be, and then you can decide what part of that, how much you want to do like the grant management stuff, how much you want to do like the grant writing or grant reports versus like community engagement and community meetings. I think there's a very easy opportunity to do a combination of the two, and then write down that on the front end you want them to do more of this grant management support, get a better understanding of data and analytics, while also connecting with the community. So by the time the summer comes, they have those social skills, those people skills, they've built those bonds already with the neighborhood residents so that they can break down that trust. So they're not just someone who's been behind a computer screen the first semester.
Okay, so one issue I had is sort of reading through the inspiration.
Yep.
To try to fit to what I am thinking about, to fit the descriptions and the inspiration. So we don't have to actually fit exactly into.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to. I think
Okay.
there's, so some of those are just suggested, right? But like those
Okay.
are suggested ones that have been used in the past, but it's not fully encompassing. So just because you don't see a title or responsibility on that list on the application doesn't mean that it's not included. It's just like these are some
Okay.
things, but it's not the full gambit of it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep. Robert, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know there's some requirement to have the work plan not be identical to last year.
Yep.
Like how different does it need to be?
I think it can be tangentially, like it can be related, but it can't be, essentially just can't be copied and pasted, right? So they can have some of the similar goals, but they can't all be the same goals. It can't be exactly the same work plan because it won't be, because in theory, then they would be doing this, they would be having the same experience as last year, right? So that's what we try to avoid, just making like kind of what I said earlier about kind of a holistic experience. So it can be something housing related, but it shouldn't be the same specific metrics of outreach or the same type of like, I think it can also even be like renewable energy and housing related, but it has to be something, some different end goal. Does that make sense?
It does. So if my member was doing outreach for two particular programs last year, I still need help with outreach, but I could have her working on a different kind of outreach for other programs, but mix in with that maybe a little more counseling work.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like some new opportunity that they might not have had last year, or some new skill that they can cultivate that they might not have had the opportunity. Like, of course, they still support that outreach with those programs, but it's not the only thing that they're doing anymore.
Okay. And sorry if you said this and I missed it, but sort of where within the template of the member goals would you sort of like I'm not quite sure where to put something that is that doesn't kind of fit within these pre-filled goals.
Sure. Yeah, I think once I'm done with this little presentation, I'll just pull up the application itself, and then we can talk through like the questions you had on it, because it's pretty long and arduous. I've noticed, and it's funny because our colleagues went out of their way to simplify it from last year, but it's still pretty long. So they also, I think something I will share with you all as well, is kind of like a how-to document that they shared of how to best complete different sections, and it's like a kind of like a guide to completing the application. So I'll share both of them on the screen, and we can talk through the questions that you both might have.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, the last thing I want to talk about with supervisor expectations is just these lists of prohibited activities that are big no-nos, specifically because of the federal program. You can't help with voter registration, you cannot support for-profit businesses, and you cannot support fundraising opportunities. So like applying for funding, writing proposals, campaigning, things like that, just because of federal requirements that I'm not too familiar with myself, to be quite honest. And that's something that has come up a lot with our partners, because, for example, the AmeriCorps member that I mentioned earlier that supported Open Streets, technically by supporting Open Streets, you're supporting the businesses, but because you're not supporting a specific for-profit business, you're not helping that one business gain more funds or gain grant access or hire a new employee. You're supporting the corridor or the community and like the cultural activities, then that specifically fits under what you can do. But if there's been organizations and members in the past who have had their work plan specifically focused on corridor improvement, but then that becomes a slippery slope where if a member spends too much time with one business on that corridor, is it supporting a for-profit business, right? So that's where you try to steer clear of that specific corridor support applications, because we've had partners in the past, and the AmeriCorps team has told us that they've had members in the past that they've had to like take away from their service because they were supporting too many businesses. So I think just out of just to keep things copacetic, we try to avoid that. But like you mentioned, there's a difference between supporting the community and the neighborhood that happens to include businesses versus supporting specific businesses. Okay, so this is a little bit more of a breakdown into what the schedule will look like with the AmeriCorps member and the CUNY program. So one thing I will say that I don't think I mentioned earlier is that not all of the AmeriCorps members have to be a part of the CUNY program. We're hoping that most of them will be, because I think CUNY has a wide variety of talent and students and young professionals to choose from that are in their graduate programs, that are in their undergraduate programs, specifically working on urban studies, labor, giving back to the community, social services, things like that, who are mission driven and are passionate. But if, for example, you have specific members, specific individuals in your community, specific members of the community that you have been working with in the past that you know that you think would be a good fit, then you can suggest that that member specifically come on and take your role. So this past year, we had 4 out of 5 of our AmeriCorps members be as a part of the CUNY SLU program, but the fifth one still was like very passionate. The one that was with Bridge Street doing the open streets events, right? She was very passionate, still got an opportunity to connect with all the other members, was still part of all our cohort training programs, all the national cohort training programs. But the one difference was that she wasn't currently / actively taking courses with CUNY, and also not getting a certificate from the school. So those, now into the specifics, right? Those members who are in the AmeriCorps CUNY Fellowship, we wanted to allot specific hours throughout the week for them to focus on their coursework, and they don't have to use it all. They can use it all on professional development, in terms of like one student had what is it, Adobe Photoshop classes that she was taking by herself. That one student that was not in the CUNY school, she wanted to improve her marketing skills, and that would benefit the partner organization, because now she can more effectively create flyers for open street events, right? So they can use that same time for their CUNY coursework or some other professional development, and they're expected to work 38 to 40 hours a week. I think last year was 42, right? Like I mentioned earlier. Now there's a little bit more flexibility, and they don't have to use all the professional development time toward coursework or towards specific training classes. They can use all 38 hours to work with you all for the week, or they can have somewhere in between, right? But that's primarily during the school term, during the semesters. During the summer break, they're expected to be with you all the full time, work the full 38 to 40 hours during the week, spend less time on classes or professional development, and spend more time in the community or with your placement sites. Of course, all because it's a federal program, all AmeriCorps members get time off for federal holidays, get vacation for federal holidays, or vacations that you all, that your organization follows. They should be following as well, but they don't necessarily have to follow the holidays that LISC follows, if that makes sense. And then, of course, they have the flexibility to take 1 week off, just like paid vacation throughout the year, if they so choose to. Now, this is a little bit more detailed, a little bit of a more detailed guide into the program elements in terms of like the launch date, the orientation. We expect all partners to have their sites, their members selected by the middle of February. I think there'll be a few partners who will have the members sooner rather than later. It really comes down to how soon can you get the application, some completed application to us? How soon can we review it, and then how soon can we like match you with a student either at CUNY or a member from your community that you think will serve your organization's needs and purposes. And last but not least, is the contact information from anyone on the team. If you have any questions or concerns or need to reach your member or someone else from the AmeriCorps team, it will be your direct point of contact as well. I'll leave the floor open if there are any questions on the program timeline and the program elements, and if not, I'll just dive right into the application.
How much is the match?
Ooh, good question. The match is $1,500 for full-time members and $700 for the 900-hour members.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I think you guys still see my screen here.
Yes.
All right, so
Yes.
this is a, I'm gonna switch to this one actually. So this is a, give me 1 second, I have a lot of stuff open here. So this is kind of a how-to document that our team shared, our LISC AmeriCorps team created as to how to answer specific parts of the application. It tells you all the which pages are what on the application, what you should be doing in each section. It's a very, very detailed guide as to what you need and what you should be doing. So let me clarify, it's 1,500 for a full-time and then 9,000 for a half-time, right? So my apologies for the mistake there. So I'll share this document with you all because I'm not sure if our e-blast had this document included. I know we had the application, we had the link to this info session. We also had FAQ question, FAQ document, but I'm not sure if this was included as well. And I think this specific document might be very resourceful in helping you all get a better understanding of what you need to do where and what that looks like. So I think you all had specific questions on what is it, the member activities and the member goals, right? Ingrid and Robert, those
Yeah.
okay, let's see if I can open one of those right now. This makes sense. So let's go. Folks, give me 1 second here. Yeah. Right, so this will be this is what you all see. This is like a blank application. I can also walk you through a completed application that was submitted by a previous partner as well. And I think the member activities, or is it inspiration? Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? So like I mentioned earlier, these are some examples of goals that fall under these specific buckets. But just because you don't see a specific responsibility or title here doesn't mean that this is the end all be all. This is basically kind of just like a working document that we have used and we provide based on what we have received in the past from previous partners and what we know has been approved in the past. So many of these titles, they can't be called just like an intern. I don't believe they can be called a fellow or a member or a coordinator or a manager or associate or a liaison. But an intern is not aligned just because of the federal the regulations of the program. And these specific buckets, I think, might be better for you all rather than the specific examples under the buckets. So I know you all are housing focused, so it might be beneficial for you to look at, providing housing assistance to people, supporting the development of affordable housing, or provide asset management services in housing. And whether that, I think, so like let's say some of the grant stuff you were talking about, Ingrid, right? I think that would
Yes.
align under providing asset management services, right, for your organization, but also for the individuals in your communities that you want to connect to housing, right? So it doesn't have to necessarily need to be like these specific items word for word, but it can, if it falls under this budget and you can make the case, or under this bucket, and you can make the case that it, one, is aligned with your organization's mission, but also two, is not a prohibited activity, then it'll very likely will be approved. And then even if you submit something that doesn't fall under the scope, we can talk through it. One, like me and you, or Taylor and yourself, or Christina and yourself, so we can workshop it. Because we've had to do that in the past with different applications that submit, and it checks, let's say 9 out of 10 boxes, because one box is a little unclear or not aligned with the federal regulations. Then we go back and provide feedback and say, hey, this is great, but maybe just change this specific page or this specific sentence. And then after that's changed, then it can be approved a little bit easier. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then let's see, activities. So this is more aligned with the kind of like the work plan and what specific things the
Mhm.
member will be doing on a day-to-day basis, what you want them to see, what you want to see day to day, but also long-term instead of strategy and vision. What is their end goal? Are they completing a project? Are they
Mhm.
optimizing a system? Or are they supporting a variety of projects? Kind of like Robert, you mentioned, supporting a variety of initiatives, and you want to see them have completed X, Y, and Z by the time. That's basically what this area is focused on, and the member goal section as well. It's similarly aligned with the member activities. Like, what do you want the member to leave their service, leave their time with the organization having completed? What do you want them to, like, if it was a portfolio, what do you want in the portfolio? Is it just like flyers? Is it decks? Things like that. Those little metrics that we can use to measure the members' progress throughout their term and get a better understanding of what you all expect for them, and also what they should know they need to complete by X date. I think this is an example, right? Different example with a different bucket. And then if you guys have any specific questions throughout while you're completing, also the summary, everything just populates here, I think, after you complete the application. So you don't need to like recomplete it every time. It's just kind of like a way for you to look at everything, or for us realistically to look at everything in a quick glance, and for you all to see, okay, I expect the member to do spend this amount of time doing this by this date. They should have preserved X, Y, and Z units, or whatever it is. And if you all are having any specific questions about the application, or a specific goal or a specific activity, whether you want to know if it's prohibited or if it's aligned, you can always reach out to myself or anyone else on the LISC New York team, and also just look at this document for inspiration. And I think between the resources that they provided, what we know about the program, and also what our partners on the National AmeriCorps team know about the program, we'll be able to provide assistance or come to a solution at any time. Robert, any other question?
Yeah, so just while we're looking at the that goals section, so I think based on the information you've given me, I've been able to kind of think through, I think, what I would want to say that our member will do, and sort of like if it's like an outreach, part of it is like an outreach intensive program.
Yep.
I see that it does say here, if the goals that are listed here do not exactly align, should I just sort of pick one of those goal buckets and edit it to my liking and send it to you guys and see if you'll approve it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one way to do it, but we also don't even have to, like, if for some reason, where was it? Member activities or inspiration? Yeah. If for some reason, like I think like I mentioned, one way to do it is to look from the bucket and then go from there and edit the specific responsibilities and goals that would fall under the bucket, but also it doesn't have to be any of these buckets specifically. I think it's basically like these are really the buckets, right? It's creation, preservation of affordable housing, financial stability of FOCs, financial opportunity centers, which Fifth Avenue Community is one, right? Or supporting the ability of the community residents, community stakeholders, and partners to thrive in their neighborhoods, kind of like what LISC Commissions is, right? So these are examples of things that fall under these buckets, but really you just need to like be aligned with A, B, or C. And you whatever that looks like, whatever you think is best, or whatever best supports your organization, as long as it falls under one of these three buckets, is really what it is.
Cool, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions on either the application or the timeline or program elements? All right, folks, I appreciate the time, specifically this time of year, because I know we all have a lot to do and we're all just counting down to the holidays. So, of course, feel free to reach out with any questions you have. I'll send this recording, the PowerPoint, and also the application instructions to you all as well, just so you all have it in one package. And then if any questions come up, you have our emails and our phone numbers in the slides as well. Appreciate you all for your time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emilio.
Of course, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Same to
Thank you
you
again.
all.
Bye,
Nice to meet
everyone.
you all.
Happy holidays.